Welcome, everyone. Maybe I'll do a sound check for the people online first. Could I get a thumbs up if the sound is good for those of you on Zoom? Great, thanks for the feedback. So it's nice to be together, and those of you who came to the center, nice that you got wet. We need the rain here in Minneapolis. And I think speaking for both of us, we're really happy to join together to do this introduction to mindfulness meditation class, because although the practice is relatively simple, it's not easy because it's not our habit. And kind of going against the stream of our culture, which we could say is characterized by distractedness. So why don't we do a little practice just so we know what we're here to do, and just notice how it's interesting, like, oh, we're going to practice like I need to look like a meditator. But remember, the work we're doing, it's not so much about the body, although the posture can be quite supportive. It's really about a way of being that, like being present. We don't need a particular kind of moment or particular circumstance to be present. True? So, whether your eyes are open or closed, simply notice what the mind is knowing. What's the mind knowing? And if you find that you're struggling or freaking out even, well, maybe that's what your mind is knowing. And the basic question, when we realize that the knowing mind is knowing something, the relevant question is, can the mind simply leave it alone? Allow whatever's being known to be what it is. Something being known or something being felt. We'll do a simple body scan. Can we bring the attention to the top of the head and simply feel the sensations here, maybe the weight of the hair or the more subtle vibration of the scalp, but simply feeling whatever we feel and know this is being known. Feel that band around the head, like the ears and the back of the head and the forehead. Any pressure. And then simply feeling the air touching the skin of the face. Maybe it's cool, maybe it's warm. This is being known. And however it is, feeling the sensations at the face, tension in the jaw, or a little tension in the eyes, or whatever it is that is being felt. Is it possible to just allow these sensations in the face to be the way they are? So both alert or intimate, and at the same time letting things be in the face. And we'll bring the attention, the awareness to the neck, the throat, simply opening, receiving whatever's here. Part of what we're doing is learning that it's possible to be interested in something relatively ordinary, being present, So sensations around the neck and throat are being known. Can this be okay? Just allowing whatever's being felt here to be the way it is. And it's actually a bit of a relief not to have to fix anything. And let the awareness open to the shoulders, tops of the shoulders, shoulder joints. And in a way, we're allowing awareness to settle or soak in. Be receptive, knowing the tops of the shoulders, shoulder joints, letting things be. Feeling both arms. And remember, we're interested in the immediacy of sensation now. We don't actually even need the thought or the mental image of the arms, unless that thought of the arms or that mental picture of the arms is helpful in bringing the awareness into the experience, where we feel the weight, we feel the touch points, we feel the temperature, the vibration, the sleeves touching the skin. Just the ordinary experience of sensation here. All the fingers, the bend of the elbows, and being present with both arms. Might it be possible to just let them both be? So allowing the sensations that are being felt, just allowing these sensations to be. And we'll take some time and we're open to the torso. And we can begin with the upper back and chest, sides of the chest or sides of the rib cage. Learning how to be receptive, right? We're not trying to fix, just receiving or recognizing the capacity of the mind to be sensitive, to feel, and to know that the upper part of the torso is being felt. It's like this now. And then the mid-torso, the solar plexus and the kidneys and the middle of the spine. Allowing everything to be. And just experimenting with this non-distraction. Keeping this experience in mind. And allow the awareness to open to the lower part of the torso, the entire abdomen and lower back, the structure of the pelvis, all the way to the floor of the pelvis, the sits bones, the groin. You might even notice that there's a kind of pleasantness in being present, being intimate. And just letting the conditions, letting the sensations be as they are. Not in conflict with experience. Feeling that sensation in the hip sockets and then down both thighs. Feeling into the legs, the bend of the knees, the shins and calves. Both feet, the heels, the ankles, all the toes. So take some time learning how to be open or receptive to both legs and feet. Learning how to keep them in mind. And then the totality of the body. In a way, we're learning how the sensitive heart can be exposed or can recognize the exposure to sensation, the physicality of the sitting body, the breathing body, feeling what's here to feel. We're not trying to figure anything out. Relearning how to be present, and we're using the physicality of the sitting body as the context of this learning how to be present. And there's this very simple truth. Sitting is being known. The sensations of sitting are being felt and known here and now in the present moment. And although it's subtle, you might be able to sense that there's something deeply wise, deeply right, deeply kind about being present in this way. You might even sense a kind of wholeness or settledness. Sitting is like this now. The sensations of sitting are being known here and now and are like this. Can this be okay? Does the heart, mind, body need to be tight? Is it okay to relax? And as we finish up this first sitting, this first meditation, just notice that awareness, mindful awareness, it isn't something that we turn on or turn off. Right? Can you stop your mind being aware right now? No. Awareness, mindful awareness is something that we can train the mind to recognize and to remember. It's a natural capacity that we're learning to recognize and keep in mind this mindful awareness, this present moment awareness. So you can open your eyes and stretch a little, adjust your legs if you need to. So for those of you in the room here, there's about 24 people online, and for those of you online, we have about 20 or so people in the room. And it's really great at this time to be able to have a class in this hybrid mode. It's not perfect, but it's really nice. It gives people options. And these 5 weeks, Jen Racho and myself, my name's Mark Nunberg, we're really here to share our own devotion, I think is, for me at least, a really appropriate word. I feel quite devoted. I have a lot of confidence in the wholesomeness and value of being present. And, you may feel a little strange to say it this way, but, or hear it this way, I have an appropriate fear of being oblivious and distracted and disconnected and unaware and unawake, right? Because when I'm not present, then I'm just habit, on autopilot, meaning the dominant habits get the play of the land, right? They get to do what they want. And I don't know about your habits, but, my habits aren't all that great. They're sort of dominated by greed, hatred, and delusion, as the Buddha might say. And so we have this practice. I think of the awareness practice or Buddhist mindfulness practice. I think of it as sort of the culmination of human common sense. I mean, it just makes so much sense that if we have a human life, we ought to be present. I often joke, it's not really a joke, but it is and it isn't, that would anybody buy a self-help book that says the secret to happiness, don't be there while you live your life, be unaware, be lost in thought, be disconnected, be superficial. That's the ticket. No one would, we wouldn't believe it. But if we actually look at our experience, distractedness is a go-to strategy for us a lot of the day, right? I mean, one of the things having more mindful awareness will reveal is how much time during the day our mind is looking for a distraction to absorb into. Maybe on my computer, maybe there's something interesting on the internet, or maybe there's something interesting in the fridge, or maybe I'll call this person up, or maybe, and surprising, and in some ways ironic, that we're afraid of just being present. I tell some people, experienced meditators sometimes need a little adjustment in how they understand practice. And sometimes I'll tell them, what I want you to do is stop meditating, and I want you once a week at least to go sit on a couch, on a chair, and don't do anything. Because people can use meditation practice also as a strategy of not being there, not being here and now. I'm busy thinking about my meditation practice. I'm busy evaluating whether I'm a good meditator or a bad meditator, or whether that person next to me is a better meditator than me, or where I'm getting to, or I'm meditating, but actually what I'm doing is thinking of the next meditation class I'm going to take and who I should study with. So what are we doing? Well, this is a class, one of the real foundational practices, and it informs so many of the other spiritual practices that come from the Buddha. But the real foundational practice, it's a training. We all have the capacity to be present, to be mindfully aware, but that doesn't mean it's a well-developed habit in the mind, tendency, right? So what is this mindful awareness? Because it's not really the same as we might think. If you haven't been doing practice, we might think that what we're doing in our meditation practice is bringing the attention and focusing on something. And that can be part of a training for sure, but it isn't really getting to the point of what mindful awareness is. It's really this reflective knowing. So the mind has this capacity to be like a mirror. It's not a perfect simile. And what a mirror does is it has this capacity to reflect whatever's happening in front of it. And if it's a good mirror, that reflection is really good. And a good mirror, it doesn't care what it's reflecting. Somebody could be doing something disgusting, like vomiting, and the mirror is just going to reflect it. Or somebody could be doing something really beautiful, and the mirror is just going to reflect it. And that's a useful metaphor or simile for this particular capacity of our mind to know what the mind is doing, or to know what the mind is knowing. Like right now, the mind is knowing something. It's the heart, mind, and Jen and I will use the word heart, mind synonymously, because chitta is the Pali word, that's the language spoken around the time of the Buddha. And the teachings of the Buddha in this early Buddhist tradition are recorded in that language. It's very similar to Sanskrit. So chitta is the heart mind. It's the knowing, right? So this experience that you're knowing right now, where is that happening? Where is the knowing of the experience you're having happening? Here and now, in the heart mind. And so you might have a heartache, like your heart's hurting, but that's being known in the heart mind. Or you may be thinking something complex, algebra or whatever, that's also being known in the heart mind. So everything that's happening, has ever happened, will ever happen, is a moment of heart mind, right? That's how we experience the world, through the heart, through the mind. Does that make sense? This shouldn't be controversial, but we don't talk about it this way. We talk about it in a very dualistic way, that there's a me who's seeing something or hearing something or thinking something or touching something. But all of those experiences through the 5 physical senses, or for knowing some aspect of mental activity, it's all being known by the heart or mind, right? Where else? It's an experience being known. And so when we talk about awareness, we're talking about recognizing our subjective experience in this very straightforward, simplistic, direct way. Something is being known. And when we say here and now, it's being known here and now. By that we mean it's being known in the mind, or it's being known in the heart, being felt, being known, being experienced here and now. And here and now means this moment of mind, this moment of the heart. The heart, mind, is that which is sensitive to thought, and our 5 physical senses. Now, it's not going to be easy for us to be interested in something so ordinary and simplistic, and in a funny way, disconnected from our thoughts about things. And generally speaking, we humans have a deep allegiance to our thoughts about things. The endless mental proliferation and the meaning we construct with our thoughts and our mental images, right? We have this whole, like Minneapolis is just one thought. But this experience being known right now, is there anything Minneapolis about it? So the concept Minneapolis has a, it's a useful convention, just like our names, Mark, Jen, whatever your name might be, useful convention. But in terms of our practice, concepts, an idea, a thought, is just that being known. So if I have the thought, I live in Minneapolis and I work in Minneapolis, in terms of our practice, that's a thought being known here and now. And if there's an emotional charge to that thought, not really for me, but let's say there is for someone, that charge, that emotional charge, is just something being felt here and now. So when Jen and I are talking about awareness, mindful awareness, being present, we're really talking about recognizing that capacity to be aware, oh, this is being known. And what's going to be known is one of these 6 things, like a sight might be known, or a sound might be known, a sensation might be known, a smell, a taste might be known, or a thought, or an emotion, a mental image might be known. And that's it. There's really nothing else that the mind ever knows, will ever know. It's going to be some combination, because it's in these 6 ways that we're sensitive. True? Any other way you're sensitive? And the mind, being aware of mental activity is kind of the catch-all. Like if it isn't a sound, a sight, a smell, a taste, a touch, then it's some aspect of the mind that's being known. Now, can we keep that in mind? So it's you could say maybe a radical deconstruction or radical simplification, or training the mind to be aware in this very direct and immediate, simplistic, ordinary, but also profound, right? Profoundly different than how we normally move through the world, right? And what the Buddha found, and what countless human beings have found over the centuries, is it really is a game changer. It really transforms how, in very ordinary, practical ways, how we get along, kind of choices we make, the amount of stress we carry. It transforms our deepest understandings. Not because we're trying to figure out the right way to understand the world. It's not a philosophical endeavor. Even though a lot of the ideas in the Buddhist teachings are interesting philosophical ideas, the value doesn't come from thinking about the ideas of the practice in terms of liking the ideas or comparing the ideas to other ideas. We use the ideas, like the words I'm using right now, to get ourselves interested in what we call practice. And by practice, we mean recognizing that this is being known. Not the idea, but using those words, like right now, we're recognizing what the mind is knowing. What's the mind knowing? Is there awareness now? How do you know the mind is aware? Well, you know the mind's aware because it's knowing something. What is it knowing? Maybe the sound of my voice, maybe not liking what I'm talking about or liking what I'm talking about. Maybe you're noticing the camera that's sitting in front of us. But whatever it is, that's a moment of wisdom. right? Oh, this is being known. This is what the mind is knowing. This is the experience, we could say, this is my life. This is being known. This is being felt. And it might be that you're attuned to like some emotional quality in your heart. Oh, anxiety is being known. Or some irritation, or some movement of joy, upliftment, or something ordinary like the foot making contact with the floor. And it seems kind of like, what's the big deal about that? And this is like initially you have to borrow some faith from the Buddha, from Jen and myself, that this really changes things. Being present, training your heart, your mind to be present in this ongoing way really changes things. So we're going to keep coming back to this point about what it means to be aware, what it means to be mindfully aware. But to begin with, just 2 qualities will be really helpful. So remember this, so you can remind yourself all day long tomorrow, all day long when Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, even that moment when you're, should I go back? Should I get on Zoom and go to week 2? And you realize, oh, I'll just relax and I'll be alert. Oh, having doubt is like this. Not wanting to go back to class is like this, right? And see, then there's a choice. Like, I don't have to just act on habit, based on habit. I can feel the wanting to sort of write it off or not come back and come back anyway. It just gives choices. Being present really gives some choices. Because without being present, the strongest habit energy calls the shots. Because we're like on autopilot. But when we're present, there's an awareness of the strong habit energy and aware that it's just a strong habit energy being known. And then wisdom can be curious. What other habit energies? There may be a quieter habit energy that's much more skillful, much more functional or useful. And because we're present, we might see there are like 4 options that are reverberating. There's the big habit energy, and then there's the minor habit energies. Otherwise, we just keep doing the same thing and getting the same results. So remember those 2 qualities: to relax, to soften, to allow, and to be alert, to be interested. What's the mind knowing? What's the mind doing? What's being known? Oh, this is being known. And then you're right back in the practice. And we're just learning to hit that same note over and over again. And, strangely, a center like this, and places and, the teachings of the Buddha, which really are grounded in this simple practice that I've just described, it's like people have found it so valuable that something like Kamago Meditation Center on a corner in Minneapolis forms. And there are several really wonderful Buddhist centers in the Twin Cities, just because human beings have found this practice of mindful awareness so impactful. And I'm saying that in part to kind of let you borrow some of my confidence so that you'll stick with it long enough to get a sense, oh yeah, this does seem really helpful. Not easy because of the force of the habit of distractedness, the mind just following its thoughts, one thought leading to the next, until we wear out that particular stream of thoughts and we look around for something else juicy to worry about, to plan, to regurgitate, to fantasize about. And then we go down that avenue for a while until that runs out of juiciness. And then we find something else to scare us or to entice us or to fill the space. And we call it a life. Yeah, so I'll pass it over to Jen now to share some thoughts, and then we'll do a little stretch, and then Jen will lead us in a guided meditation.
Thanks, Mark. Can folks hear me okay in the room? A little louder? How about on Zoom? How's my volume there? Can we get a thumbs up? Cool, great. If at any time you can't hear me, please just motion, let me know. So again, my name is Jen Racho. I use she, her pronouns, and I am really grateful to be here, to be with all of you. Ooh, to be with Mark when he's not messing with the volume. And I have a lot of appreciation. You know, Mark used the word devotion in this practice. And I'm just feeling right now a lot of appreciation for teachers like Mark and for centers like Common Ground and for people who are interested in what mindfulness might have to offer. I've been practicing for some time now, and for about the first 10 years, I practiced in the Soto Zen tradition, and now I practice both in the Zen as well as the Insight tradition here that Common Ground practices in. And you know, I was prepping for this class, and I was thinking about, well, how did I get here? Why was I interested, and how did I stay? Is almost the more interesting question. And you know, like a lot of people, I was looking for something else. Things were difficult in my life. I had a lot of questions about it, and nothing really fit quite right. So I started reading some books on meditation and listening to folks. And there was just some kernel of, I couldn't really articulate what it was, but there was something that was like, oh yeah, you know, I should look into this. And you know, I'll share with you one quick story of sort of a hook. And maybe in the story you'll hear some of the things that Mark was talking about in his introduction remarks, but it was one of the first times I sat in a class like this. I was meditating with people and I was feeling pretty good. I was focusing on my breath. Things seemed to be going okay. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm going to do this more often. And then I started thinking, which happens, you know, it's what our minds do, just like our ears hear sounds, our minds produce thoughts. And one of the thoughts was about a breakup I recently had with a person. And that thought led to another thought. And I was reliving my emotions. I was reliving the stories of why they were wrong and I was right. And finally, I came out of that train of thought. And I came back to my breath, I came back to my body, and I noticed my body had changed. I was hot. I think I was actually sweating. My heartbeat was faster. My mind was tight. I was so wound up. And something there. And then I realized all of this happened in me because I had one thought. Nothing external had changed. But this one thought had changed my whole perspective. And that kind of amazement and curiosity, you know, lasted for quite a while. And so, you know, Mark also alluded to sort of the radicalness of coming here, practicing mindful awareness, because it's not, you know, part of our habit energy. It's certainly not sort of the culture that we're in these times. And I was traveling recently, and I was in a Starbucks. It was a really hot day. It was in California, and I looked up, and there was a poster, and there were a poster of 3 refreshing drinks. And maybe coffee isn't your thing, so you know, substitute it with something else. But the drinks were cold. They were frothy, they had a caramel drizzle on top, and just, you know, everything you might need if you were feeling hot and needed relief. And the 3 words on top of the drinks were chase happy things. And I was like, wow, that is almost everything of kind of Mark alluded to, how we sort of move through life. And not there's anything wrong with frothy cold drinks in the summer, but we mistake them for something else, and it's just sort of this hamster wheel. So I kind of share all of these things actually similarly because I want to share some encouragement to whatever it is that brought you here. And I'm sure there are folks who have already been practicing for some time in the room. Whatever instinct or gut feeling of, hey, this might be a good thing, to trust that, and to follow it, even when you don't feel it, or you don't know it, or like Mark said, even when you're like, well, I don't need to come back to class, I can do other things, or maybe you're down on yourself because you're not practicing, or you're not meditating and doing things, or maybe you're feeling like, well, the next person looks like they're doing really well, and I'm just thinking about everything on my laundry list to do here, so therefore I shouldn't be here. But so again, just sort of trust that wholesomeness, and that instinct to move towards something good is there, and it will always be there, regardless of what other circumstances may feel like. So I thought it also might be helpful to share some of the perhaps misconceptions, at least misconceptions I definitely had in practicing mindfulness, and still do at times fall back into thinking about. The first one is that our mind is actually not the enemy. We think that a lot of times practicing sitting silent is about getting rid of your thoughts. And if I'm thinking, then I must not be doing it right. And again, it's the nature of the mind to produce thoughts, just like it's the nature of our ears to hear sounds or our eyes to see. So, why would we get all wound up about that? Another thing to misconception is that you don't have to practice in a particular position. And so, we see images of people and the Buddha, and even Mark and I sitting here semi-cross-legged. The posture is important because it helps maintain awareness. And so we'll talk more about that. But whether you're sitting in a chair or sitting full lotus position or doing walking meditation or even lying down, the benefits of the practice are equal in any of those postures, as the Buddha pointed out. Another misconception is that anybody, I should say this is the right way to think about this, anyone can do this practice. As Mark said, it's not it is a philosophy to some extent, but you don't have to have read a lot. You don't have to study a lot. You don't have to have a certain type of mind or a certain type of personality to do the practice and to benefit from it. I'm definitely fall on the distracted, spacey types of people in the world. And so it can definitely be done. And the last thing I'll share is, for a long time, I thought this practice was, the benefits would be about, having focus, having some emotional stability. I've experienced anxiety and depression, and so that's what I was kind of looking for. And all of those things are true. Emotional stability, having a better sense of concentration at times when I need it. But the real benefit, the real thing that I learned about this at some point was that this was actually a heart-opening practice. It opened my heart and it grew it in ways that I didn't, early on, had no idea was possible. And I think a lot of that has to do with sort of the relationship that, as Mark suggested, we live a lot of times distracted. and we're not actually present to see other opportunities there are other than our habits. And so when you have more options, you can go back to that instinct of goodness and wholesomeness. Again, that's always there, and move and act and be with people and animals and things in the world in a different way. So maybe I will stop there. You know, Mark and I have shared a lot of words, and we'll do a little more practice. But before that, why don't we take a minute break? Folks on Zoom, feel free to step away if you need to. In the room, feel free to stand up, stretch your legs. It looks like the rain has stopped and the sun is coming out. So things are changing always. So when you're ready, we can sit back down or sit back on your chair. We'll sit maybe for 15, 20 minutes here. So take a comfortable posture. Again, we'll talk more about posture next week, but the important thing to remember is to be relaxed and to be alert. So whether you're sitting in a chair or a cushion, it helps to be upright, to be alert, but we don't want to be straining the body in any way, because again, we want to be relaxed. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes, or you can keep them open, looking down a few feet in front of you. So let's take 3 or 4 deep breaths, filling your lungs, exhaling. As you exhale, maybe settle a little bit deeper into your body. Feel the weight of the body. Feel your body resting on the cushion or the chair. Releasing any tightness, inviting a release in any tightness that might be that we're sensing. And reminding ourselves that it's okay to just be here right now. For the next few minutes, let's notice the sounds that we're hearing. There's the sound of my voice. There are other sounds in the room, wherever you are. Some of these sounds might seem close. Some may be far away. We might notice that the sounds come and go. And it doesn't take a lot of effort on our part to Hear the sounds. So we are just aware that sounds are being known. We're cultivating a sense of being open and receptive. So let's also invite our awareness to our body. It's always a good reminder that we have a body. It's one of our most loyal friends. Maybe we can notice where the body is touching the floor, or the cushion, or the chair. And while we're mostly still, there's also some movement in the body from our breathing. Let's see if we can bring our awareness to the movement in the body as we breathe in and as we breathe out. Breathing in, we're experiencing the whole body. Breathing out, we're allowing the body to just be. And if it's helpful, we can say to ourselves, breathing in, it's like this now. Breathing out, this is being known. Now let's bring our awareness closer to our breath and notice any sensations that you feel breathing in and breathing out. Maybe you notice the sensation of the air coming in and out of your nostrils. Or maybe you feel the rising and falling in your chest or your belly. So you can rest your awareness wherever the movements or sensations of the breath are most clear. And there's no need to control the breath or force it. Everything is okay just the way it is. And as we're following the sensations of our breath in our body, we might notice thoughts come and go. We might have heard the brief sound of the rain come and go. And thoughts or other senses aren't a problem. We can just notice them in a really friendly way and gently come back to the sensations of the breath. Our basic task here is to connect and be aware of our breathing in a continuous way as best we can. So we're not trying to get anywhere or try to make anything happen. We're being interested in this simple, ordinary experience of breathing. And maybe you might notice that it feels okay. It might feel even a little good to be interested in this simple activity, to be present in a relaxed and curious way. Maybe there's even a sense of relief. And if there's not, there are other feelings or reactions or emotions, that is okay too. So let's continue to sit for about another 8 minutes. We'll sit in silence. And a reminder, so there are 3 options we can be aware of. Sounds, or the sensations of the breath in a particular place in the body. Or we can be aware of the whole body as we breathe. So in these last few minutes, let's open our awareness to whatever is being known in this moment. It might be a sound, might be a sensation in the body, maybe a feeling. What is the mind knowing right now? What else is the mind knowing? So feel free to stretch the body a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
So how was that? And it is true that some sits, there will be more tranquility or peacefulness, settledness, and other sits, other meditation times will feel like a real wild ride, right? And maybe surprisingly, that's not actually that significant, whether it's the peace or the wild ride. What's more significant is the learning. So when it was a wild ride, did the mind learn how to be aware that they could be aware in a way that there was nobody having a problem with the wild ride? Just like if you're having one of those nice sets, so there's a lot of peacefulness and tranquility and settledness. Can we be aware of that good sit without wanting it to last, wanting it to even be better, or thinking that we've got more than somebody else, more tranquility, I'm the best, right? Which are all contracted states. So it's all about learning to be free with the conditions. And one of the things you're going to find is in this class, Jen and I are going to set aside time each week, these 5 weeks, to have you report, like, what did you learn? What did you experience? How did you relate to that? What did you learn relating to it in that way? And it's in a way what we're doing together, we're sort of mutually responsible for just expressing or unpacking this lawful, conditional, natural process that is our mind or our heart, right? And it's this triangulation, like we hear it from one person report how their sit went, or a little snippet from their daily life or from their sitting practice, and then another person. And we're getting these different data points about the mind as a natural process. It's easy for us to understand, like with the weather this evening here in Minneapolis, we had some storms blow through. And it's easy to understand or to get that the weather is a natural process. There's no location to the weather. It's these different forces interacting in this lawful way that we don't really understand completely, but we can kind of get a general sense of its lawfulness. But it's actually true for our mind, our heart too. And we learn about that mind, our mind is a natural process, by being willing to share. And I know it isn't always so comfortable to do that. It feels so personal, but it ain't really that personal. It's just causes and conditions, whether it's, this particular pattern is from our childhood or genetic conditioning or more general cultural conditioning, but we know it's lawful. So we'll take some time now. It'd be nice to hear your questions about anything that Jen or I have said, or from your, even better, from your sits, the first one or this more recent sit. Yeah, what arose for you? How did you relate to it? What happened next? Any learning from that? What was difficult? What felt good? And we'll start maybe from the folks online, just checking in with you. And you can just, anyone can unmute yourself. And I'll put you on a mic here so that everyone in the room, anybody have any comments you're willing to share with the whole group from the Zoom community? Or questions that have arisen for you? So that means it was all perfectly clear. Okay, how about the in-person community? Anything come to mind? Was it easy to be present? Yeah, do you mind sitting up here so I can give you the mic so people online can hear you?
Just clip it on, or
No, you can.
oh, just hold it. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess there were two things that I noticed, and one I'm curious about. One I just noticed it happened to me early in the sits, where I'm listening to when there's some guiding happening. I'm listening to that, and a thought I'll get carried away with the thought briefly, and then I just ground myself back in my breathing or listening. That's more just a comment of something that's happening. The one that I'm curious about, and that's sort of it's a little bit, the feeling is similar to the first case, but you get into like a hypnagogic state, like when you're falling asleep and you're sort of, it's like that sort of out of body experience, and then you sort of snap back into it. I don't know if there's something about my alertness while I'm sitting. Am I letting myself get too close to a sleep state when that's happening?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And I'm betting that we're going to revisit this question over and over during these 5 weeks. The different versions of too much tranquility, trance-like states, sleepiness, even the kind of nodding off that's quite common in meditation circles. If you are sitting with a group of people, if you open your eyes and look around, there's going to be some percentage of people that are doing the nod. And it's like the mind loses awareness, loses consciousness even, but then the experience of falling forward triggers some deep instinct that it's going to hurt if I don't wake up. And the mind wakes up, right? And the fear of falling keeps the mind alert for 5 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, and then the nod again. And some of it, of course, is just because we're cultivating present moment awareness and we've been sleep deprived for weeks. And what present moment awareness reveals is this body and mind is really tired and it needs sleep, right? So you know what to do about that. Get more sleep in your life. But even if you're caught up, even if you're getting good sleep, sleepiness, trance-like states, la la land, fuzzy states, very common and really important to develop some skill around. Not to be afraid of them, it's just something being known. That the mind should be curious about, like, is there some way the mind is relating, or is there something the mind is not aware of that's here and now that is supporting the slide into unconsciousness, into sleepiness, into a trance-like state? And that you can figure out. Because like, I'll just give you one example. This may fit with your experience or it may not. But one thing that can happen when there is some settledness, we get a little continuity with our meditation object or our anchor, connecting and sustaining awareness. And so the mind isn't flitting about, isn't worrying, it isn't scaring itself, it isn't generating a lot of energy, it's soothing itself by being with the breath, let's say. And as the tranquility, as the sense of settledness increases, the mind unknowingly starts to indulge in the nice feeling of not being distracted. So it's not aware of the present moment experience. Oh, this is pleasant. And interested in the pleasantness, alert, right? Remember, alert is half of the initial way we're thinking about practice is alert and relax, just to keep it simple. And there's a lot of the relaxation, but the mind forgets about the other half, being interested, being alert, being bright, being intimate, really there with the pleasantness of the tranquility. So this is the thing, if you do get some momentum, some continuity, there will be some pleasantness from that, the qualities, the energies of the mind starting to gather, starting to settle. It will feel good. And if the mind does what the mind normally does, because it's a strong habit, which is, hey, it doesn't say it out loud. This is an unconscious habit. Hey, this feels good. What do I do when I feel good? I go to sleep because it feels good, right? I'm comfortable. So this might be a really good time to check out. But what we're doing is we're retraining the mind to be interested in those pleasant, wholesome, gathered, settled state. What does alertness look like, feel like, when the mind is really settled, the body's really peaceful? Can the mind be alert, interested, intimate, receptive, even when things are really nice? It's generally easy to be interested when it's really painful, but not so easy to be interested when it's not painful but pleasant. So you might just look like, is the mind really interested in the pleasantness that was there before the mind started to get gooey? Or did it sort of, because things are going well, why do I need to be present? I can just be spacey. And then that's what leads. And if you observe yourself with awareness as you're falling asleep at night, you'll see something similar. Like you're there, you're getting really peaceful because you're mindful, right? You're lying there, you're comfortable, you've got your sweet spot, how you like to lie down, right? Favorite PJs, your night light, whatever you like, you got all that going, everything's good. And right when things get really comfortable, it's like the mind no longer wants to be aware about how nice it is. So you'll start to notice, if you get really good at being aware as you're falling asleep, that right before you fall asleep, the mind just starts to think about something really neutral and unimportant, so that it loses its awareness of what's happening. It loses its bright, interested, curious alertness, because that's not conducive to falling asleep. Totally fine to do that when you're falling asleep at night, but we don't want to do that when we're meditating, right? Because we're cultivating both that quality of alert, bright, interest, and the qualities of relaxation, trust, ease. Good. Thanks for bringing that up. And we'll come back to this because other people will have similar experiences. So either online or in the room, other experiences, and I'll pass the mic after you speak to Jen to respond. But what else did you learn in the sit or question or comment? Anybody online or anybody in the room? Yeah. Do you want to come up?
Hi, Nick, they, them pronouns. One thing that I've been thinking about, I've been doing the meditation thing for a few months and trying to, make it a more formal thing. But there is this like identification with being a meditator, being, working towards a spiritual awakening or being enlightened, or like I almost feel like it is becoming this identity for me in a way that isn't productive, in the way that I've made other things part of my identity or reached for other things that kind of gave me a distraction. So yeah, it doesn't feel productive. So how do you kind of navigate that? How do you not make this practice be about anything other than just now? If that makes sense.
Thanks for the question, Nick. Makes a lot of sense. And it's really helpful to be aware of that, to be curious about it, and to be interested. And I guess my response is that exact same thing, is to continue to be aware, to be curious, and to be interested, and maybe not to make that a thing too. Like, are you going to make this concern of making meditation an identity or a thing? Are you going to, what happens in the mind, what happens in the body when these thoughts come up, and watching them maybe proliferate perhaps, because that seems to be how we make stories. We kind of add on and add on because we're not fully present to just, let's say, noticing a thought or having a judgment, regardless if it's neutral or helpful or not helpful. Are we really mindful to the energy around that thought? And also, again, sort of the causes and conditions. Are you concerned about this becoming a thing because of something else you thought about beforehand, or because of other people you're around that lead you to perhaps, and I'm maybe really talking about myself here as I'm giving these instructions or suggestions, I should say, other people that trigger my habit of competitiveness, my habit of, am I good enough? Is this a sort of, am I good enough story? And, where is it that I'm falling short that shows I'm not good enough? And so just being really caring about this inquiry. And I think your instincts are really good to be like, oh, this, you mentioned some perhaps like fear. I don't want this to be like other things in my life. And so leaning into that and getting to know, what is that fear about? Seems really helpful. Yeah. Mark, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that sounded really right to me. And we're going to be living with identities for a long time. So just like befriending them and be curious about them. And some identities will be heavier and maybe in a sense more toxic, and others will be more useful and functional. But the attachment is always a dead weight. The unconscious fixation on the identity as something to give us permanent ground. But we can't avoid having an identity. That itself would become the identity, right? Being the one without an identity. So we just have to get used to the fact that we're going to have identities and use them functionally, knowing that we're using them because they illuminate things, you know. Being the meditator will illuminate so much about other habits of the mind that don't fit that new identity. Yeah, maybe time for one more comment or question if there's anything else online from the group or in the room before we wrap up our evening. Anybody want to unmute themselves from the Zoom group? Anybody in the room? Good. Well, please remember, you know, as you're practicing this week, and it'd be ideal to set aside, you know, some of you maybe have 14 kids and a busy job and taking care of your elderly parents, but still probably a few minutes every day to formally some corner of some room that's relatively uncluttered. And for the period of the course, and maybe for the rest of your life, that space in your home will remind you of your intention to be present. And then you'll have this resolve, even on those really busy days, get to that chair, get to that cushion for at least a few minutes where you're acting on your intention, your resolve to learn how to be present. It's really to learn how to recognize being present, right? To recognize that natural capacity, and to put the time in. And not to make a big deal when you forget or when you've been bad and you didn't do it, even though you knew you were supposed to do it, right? Because in that moment that you recognize it, oh, this is what's being known. Being bad, being naughty is like this. Okay, it feels like this. You know, that judgment is just the judging mind being known. Okay. And the same as I mentioned earlier, come next Tuesday afternoon or early evening, you may be all gung-ho for learning how to be more mindful in your life, but then it just doesn't seem to make sense to come back to class or to come on to Zoom for the class. But just remember, you can still come even if you don't want to come, because you know how to be with that experience of not wanting to come. Oh yeah, that's the resistant mind being resistant, or being the lazy mind being lazy, or the doubtful mind, like, is this really worth it? Oh, that's just that thought being known here in the present moment. Because what we're doing, you know, we're not going to be experts after 5 weeks, but we might have enough of a taste of the practice to really have an independent value. This is a good thing. So you're not dependent on Jen or Jen's confidence. You're not dependent on Mark's confidence. You're beginning to have your own confidence. You know what? I think it's really useful. And it doesn't get in the way with all those other things that I think are important in life. It will only support those other things that I value. Being present, what is it that you really value that learning how to be more fully present won't support, right? It will support everything that we value. So remember in the handout or in the email that Jen and I sent out earlier today, hopefully you got it. If you didn't get it, it may be that you didn't register. So we need your email so we can get you in that Google group so you get the reminders and the handouts. But in that email is a link to the handout. So there's a handout for week 1, a handout for week 2. It's just a supporting document. And also the previous class was recorded that Shelley Graff and I taught in March. I think that might have been a 4-week version of this. And you can find that on our YouTube channel. And in the next week's email, to remind you of next Tuesday, we'll have the link to our YouTube channel. But you could just find it on YouTube. Just search for Common Ground Meditation Center. And if you just scroll down a little, you'll see all the intro classes there. So if you're out of town or if you have to miss a class for whatever reason, we'll have this class is immediately recorded. So you can use the guided meditations from tonight. They're already on our YouTube channel. because we're recording right now. And you can find the previous classes too. So you'll have plenty of resources to support you if you feel like you need that support. And we hope to see you all next Tuesday. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks all of you online. Have a good night, everyone. And it's pouring here in Minneapolis, so you'll get that beautiful shower. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And you're more than welcome to wait.